rejected for what she couldn't give. She never imagined that a lonely billionaire and his 4 children would show her the true meaning of love and family. Amara had always believed in fairy tales, in love that lasted forever, and in a home filled with laughter and children. She had imagined her life with Raj, her husband, as the perfect picture him. Tall and charming, always smiling at her little jokes, and her caring and devoted, creating a warm, welcoming home. But life had its own plans. Amara's dream began to crumble the day she discovered that she could not have children. The diagnosis had been a blow she was not prepared for. Sitting in the sterile, cold room of the doctor's clinic, with the quiet hum of machines in the background, Amara felt the world collapse around her. The words, "I'm afraid you are infertile," echoed in her mind over and over. Her heart ached, not just for herself, but for the life she had imagined, a home filled with laughter, tiny feet running across the floor, and lullabies in the night. She had always wanted to be a mother, to nurture and love, to see her children grow and explore the world. The thought that this might never happen was unbearable. She had hoped that Raj would be her rock during this painful time. She had imagined him holding her hands, telling her that everything would be okay, they could find another way, that love was more than biology. But when she told him, his reaction was nothing like she had expected. His face, which she had loved so dearly, changed. There was disappointment, a flicker of irritation, and something else, something cold and distant. "I can't live like this," he said bluntly, as if he were discussing a simple inconvenience rather than the devastation of her soul. Amara stared at him, disbelief and hurt mixing together. She had known Raj was ambitious, that he cared about family and legacy, but she had never thought that her inability to bear children would make him turn away from her. She tried to explain her feelings, to tell him that love was not just about having children, that they could adopt, that they could find another path to happiness. But he wouldn't listen. The days that followed were some of the darkest of Amara's life. Raj avoided her gaze, spoke to her only when necessary, and began spending more time away from home, leaving Amara alone with her thoughts and her grief. Each morning, she would wake up with a heavy heart, the house feeling emptier than ever, filled with silence that echoed the rejection she felt. She felt like a failure, not just in Raj's eyes, but in her own. Every reflection in the mirror reminded her of her inability, and every passing day made her feel smaller, invisible. Friends and relatives tried to console her, but their words felt hollow. They didn't understand the sharp pain of being rejected by someone you love, of feeling unworthy simply because of something beyond your control. Amara withdrew from social gatherings, stopped attending family functions, and even avoided calling friends. The world she once engaged with seemed distant, almost unreal. Her home, once a place of comfort and laughter, became a place of sorrow and echoing silence. Yet amid the heartbreak, a part of her refused to give up. She still held on to hope, tiny and fragile, that maybe life had something better for her. She started taking long walks, feeling the wind on her face, allowing herself to cry in the quiet of empty streets. She journaled her feelings, poured her soul onto pages, trying to make sense of the pain. She knew she had to find a way to survive, to rebuild herself. Even if Raj had already given up on her, it was during one of these walks that Amara began to notice the small beauties of life. She had ignored before: flowers blooming in the cracks of sidewalks, children playing with boundless joy, strangers sharing unexpected smiles. She realized that life went on, even when it seemed cruel, and that perhaps there was still a place for her in this world. Slowly, she started to understand that her worth was not defined by her ability to have children, that she could still love, nurture, and make a difference in someone's life, even if it wasn't in the way she had originally imagined. The final moment that broke her completely came when Raj finally spoke with finality. "I can't live like this. I need someone who can give me the life I want," he said, as if cutting a ribbon on a life they had once shared. Amara packed her few belongings with trembling hands, feeling as if she was leaving not just a house but a life she had dreamed of, a version of herself she would never see again. Her heart ached with every step, but deep inside, a small spark of determination remained. She would survive this. She would find a way to love herself and maybe one day, someone else would see her worth. As she walked away from the home she had shared with Raj, Amara felt the weight of rejection pressing down on her, but also a strange sense of freedom. For the first time, she realized that she was not defined by someone else's standards, that her life was still hers to live, and that the future, though uncertain, could still hold happiness. It was a painful beginning, but it was also a turning point, the first step toward a life that she would reclaim for herself. After leaving her home and the life she thought she would have, Amara felt a mix of sadness and relief. She had lost the man she loved. She had also escaped a life where she was constantly reminded of her inability to give him children. With time, she tried to rebuild herself, taking small steps, each day working odd jobs, meeting new people, and learning to stand on her own. One chilly afternoon, she was invited to help at a local charity event that aimed to support underprivileged children. She hesitated at first, unsure if she wanted to face a crowd, but something inside her told her that this was an opportunity to make a difference. Even in small ways, the venue was grand and bustling with people dressed in expensive attire. But Amara stood out not because of her appearance, but because of her quiet, attentive presence. She moved among the crowd, helping with decorations, organizing tables, and quietly assisting wherever she could. It was then that she noticed Himathan. He was the kind of man who commanded attention without even trying. Tall, sharply dressed, and with an aura of authority, he was clearly used to being in control. But despite his powerful presence, there was something in his eyes that struck Amara, a hint of sadness, of loneliness that not even wealth could hide. Ethan had 4 children, each with their own unique personality and challenges. He had been raising them alone since their mother had left years ago, and although he loved them deeply, the weight of responsibility had taken its toll. He had a reputation for being a demanding businessman, but anyone who saw him with his children knew a different side, a softer, more vulnerable man who would go to any lengths for his family. That day, the children were part of the event as volunteers, helping with games and activities. But it was clear that their energy and excitement sometimes overwhelmed. Amara first noticed the children when a little boy, no older than 6, tripped and fell while running. Without thinking, she rushed forward to help him up, brushing dirt off his clothes and checking if he was hurt. Ethan watched from across the room, his brow furrowed, surprised at how calmly and kindly she handled the situation. The other children soon approached her, drawn by her warmth and genuine attention. For the first time that day, Ethan allowed himself a small smile, silently acknowledging that this stranger seemed different from anyone else he had met. The initial interaction between Amara and Ethan was cautious. He was polite but reserved, clearly used to keeping people at a distance while she was careful, trying not to overstep boundaries in a world so unlike her own. Yet there was an unspoken connection, a shared understanding of loss and responsibility. Ethan had seen many people in his life come and go, some drawn by his wealth, others by curiosity. But Amara did not seem interested in either. She was there to help, to contribute, and somehow that sincerity drew him in. Over the course of the day, Amara found herself naturally drawn to the children. She helped a young girl with a tricky puzzle, played a game of catch with a shy boy, and comforted a teenager who had gotten into a minor argument with his sibling. With each interaction, she demonstrated patience, empathy, and a nurturing quality that seemed to put everyone at ease. The children responded to her instinctively, as if they recognized a safe, caring presence in her. Ethan noticed the way his kids laughed more freely around her, how their tensions seemed to ease in her company, and he felt a strange mix of relief and curiosity. At one point, he approached Amara while she was helping the youngest child tie a shoelace. "You have a way with them," he said quietly, not wanting to interrupt her focus. She looked up, startled, and smiled softly. "I love working with children," she replied simply. "They are honest, they are genuine, and they remind you of the simple joys of life." Ethan nodded, impressed by her words. He was used to people speaking politely, making small talk or flattering him, but Amara's words were sincere, and they struck a chord. The event continued, and Amara's presence became a comfort not just to the children, but also to Ethan. He found himself watching her from across the room, noticing the small gestures, the way she listened carefully, laughed warmly, and encouraged the kids. He realized that he had spent so much of his life focused on business, on maintaining appearances, that he had almost forgotten the importance of simple human connections. Amara reminded him of something he had been missing, a warmth that went beyond wealth, status, or power. By the end of the day, the event was winding down, and the children were tired but happy. They clung to Amara, asking if she would come back to help them again. Ethan saw the sparkle in their eyes, the genuine affection they had developed for her in just a few hours. He felt a mix of gratitude and awe, realizing that someone like her, someone kind, patient and nurturing, could bring so much joy into their lives. It was the first time in years that he felt hope, that he imagined a life where his children could feel truly cared for and loved in a way that went beyond him alone. Before leaving, Ethan approached Amara again. "Thank you for helping today," he said, his voice quieter than before, more personal. "The children really enjoyed your company." "So did I." Amara blushed slightly, surprised by the compliment from a man she had barely spoken to. "It was my pleasure," she replied. "I enjoy helping where I can." There was a brief silence, filled with unspoken understanding, a moment where both realized that something meaningful had begun, even if they didn't yet understand it fully. As Amara left the event, walking through the cool evening air, she felt a strange mix of emotions. She had spent so long feeling rejected, unloved, and unworthy, and yet today had shown her a glimpse of something she had almost given up on: hope, connection, and the possibility of being valued for who she truly was. She didn't know what the future held, but for the first time in months, she felt a sense of possibility. Someone had seen her not as incomplete or lacking, but as capable, kind, and important. Ethan, meanwhile, watched her leave, feeling an unfamiliar tug at his heart. He had met many people before, but none had made him feel this way. There was something rare in her, a warmth, a quiet strength, and a genuine kindness that he couldn't ignore. He realized that perhaps life had brought them together for a reason, that maybe Amara was the missing piece his family didn't know it needed. For the first time in a long while, he allowed himself to imagine a future where his children could be happy, and he could find companionship not just as a provider, but as a partner. By the end of that day, both Amara and Ethan had experienced a turning point. Amara had seen that there was life beyond rejection, that she could find meaning and connection in unexpected places. Ethan had recognized the rare and special presence of someone who could bring light into his children's lives and perhaps into his own. Neither of them knew what the future would hold, but both felt that a new chapter was beginning, one filled with hope, possibility, and the promise of unexpected bonds that could change their lives forever. After that first encounter at the charity event, Mara found herself thinking about the children and Ethan more than she expected. She had spent so long feeling rejected and unloved that she was surprised by the warmth she felt when she was around them. It was as if being needed and appreciated had awakened a part of her that she thought had died with her failed marriage. She decided, quietly to herself, that she wanted to see them again, not for attention or status, but simply because she enjoyed their company and wanted to bring a little happiness into their lives. Ethan, on the other hand, could not stop thinking about her either. There was something about Amara that was different from anyone he had ever met. She didn't seem impressed by his wealth, nor did she act afraid of his position in society. She was kind, patient, and genuine, qualities he realized were rare in the world he lived in. But more than that, he noticed how his children responded to her. Their laughter had come more easily, their eyes had shone brighter, and even the quietest, most reserved of them had opened up to her. He began to wonder if she might be someone they could not only enjoy spending time with, but truly rely on. A few days later, Ethan reached out to Amara. He had been hesitant at first, unsure if it was appropriate, but he found himself hoping she would say yes. When she received the invitation to help at another small family gathering he was organizing for the children, her heart skipped. She had never expected to be asked back so soon, and though a part of her still feared being rejected again, she felt a surge of excitement. This was different. She wasn't being judged for what she couldn't do. She was being valued for who she was at the gathering. Amara arrived to find the children buzzing with energy, eager to show her games they had planned and crafts they had made. She was immediately drawn into their world, helping them arrange tables, assist with a small puppet show, and even improvise a short story with them. Every time she laughed, the children's laughter grew louder. Every time she listened, they spoke more openly about their feelings, their dreams, and even their small fears. For Amara, this was a revelation. She had never imagined she could connect with children so easily, especially children who were not her own. She began to feel a sense of purpose she hadn't felt since she was young, a feeling that she could nurture, guide, and bring joy in ways she had once only dreamed about. Ethan watched quietly at first, making sure his work didn't distract him from observing. He was struck by the ease with which Amara adapted to their chaotic world, the patience she showed when disputes arose, and the gentle encouragement she gave when a child felt shy or insecure. He noticed the way she never raised her voice unnecessarily, yet commanded respect through her kindness. Slowly he began to relax around her, finding himself smiling more freely and appreciating her company beyond the initial impression he had of her. Over the next few weeks, Mara began visiting more often. Each time, she found new ways to engage with the children, helping the eldest with schoolwork, teaching the middle ones how to bake simple treats, and taking the youngest on short walks to explore the small park near their home. Her presence became a source of comfort, not only for the children but also for Ethan. He found himself sharing small details of his life with her, asking her opinions on parenting challenges, and occasionally seeking her advice. For the first time in years, he felt a sense of partnership with someone, even if it was just in the simplest of ways. The children, who had been guarded and wary of adults who tried to enter their lives, began to trust her completely. They sought her out for advice, shared their secrets, and even argued with her at times, something they had never done with anyone outside their father. Amara's natural empathy allowed her to handle these moments gracefully, showing the children that she respected their feelings and boundaries. This trust formed a bond that was deeper than friendship. It was the beginning of family. Ethan began to notice changes in himself, too. He found that he looked forward to Amara's visits more than he cared to admit. Her laughter, her calm presence, and the way she connected with his children made the heavy burden of his responsibilities feel lighter. He started to realize that he had been so focused on providing material comfort that he had neglected emotional warmth. And Amara had brought that warmth back into his home. Slowly, he began to see the possibility of a life where he could share not just duties, but joys and sorrows with someone who understood him and cared for his children. One afternoon, while Amara was helping the children with a craft project, Ethan found himself in the doorway, watching quietly. The sight of his kids so happy and engaged, and Amara so naturally nurturing, stirred something inside him. He realized that she had a rare gift, not only the ability to care for children, but the ability to bring happiness and stability into their lives. He felt a mix of admiration, gratitude, and something he hadn't felt in a long time: hope. He wondered if perhaps fate had brought her into their lives for a reason. As days turned into weeks, their bond strengthened further. Amara began to understand the unique dynamics of the household, the children's individual personalities, their fears, their joys, and their ways of coping with the absence of their mother. She didn't try to replace anyone or take control. She simply became a safe presence, someone they could rely on without fear of judgment. This careful balance made her indispensable to them, and Ethan could see it in their eyes. They had found someone they trusted completely, someone who made their house feel warmer and fuller. The turning point came one evening when the youngest child fell ill. Amara stayed late, comforting him through a high fever, reading stories, and even cooking a simple meal to make him feel better. Ethan, exhausted from work, watched her tirelessly care for his child and felt a surge of emotion he could barely contain. It was then that he realized her worth wasn't measured by conventional expectations, by what society might demand of her, or even by her own past heartbreak. Her worth was in her kindness, her patience, and her ability to love without conditions. In that moment, he knew that she had become more than just a helper or a visitor. She had become part of their lives in a way that was vital, meaningful, and irreplaceable. By the end of part 3, Amara had found a new sense of belonging. She had experienced the joy of nurturing and being appreciated, a feeling she had long thought impossible after her rejection. Ethan, too, began to understand that Amara was someone extraordinary, someone who could transform their household with love, patience, and understanding. Slowly, unspoken connections began to form trust, respect, and the faint stirrings of love. Both Amara and Ethan were unaware of the full impact their bond would have on each other's lives, but each day brought them closer, weaving together a fragile but promising tapestry of family, hope, and the possibility of happiness beyond what either had imagined. Days turned into months, and with each passing day, Amara's bond with Ethan and his children deepened. She had become more than a visitor in their lives. She was now a central part of their daily routine, constant source of comfort, laughter, and guidance. Yet, despite the closeness, silent tension lingered between her and Ethan. Both felt the growing connection, but neither had spoken openly about what it might mean. Amara had begun to hope quietly that perhaps a future with them could exist, but fear of rejection and memories of her past heartbreak held her back. Ethan, too, wrestled with his feelings. He had never allowed himself to consider love again since his own losses, and yet he could not ignore the warmth and light Amara had brought into his home. One evening, after a particularly busy day filled with school activities, errands, and work meetings, Ethan found himself alone with Amara while the children were asleep. They sat together on the couch, exhausted but content. The quiet hum of the city outside the window, blending with the soft ticking of a clock. There was a moment of silence, comfortable yet charged with unspoken words. Ethan looked at her, noticing the way her eyes reflected kindness, strength, and a gentle vulnerability that drew him in. He realized that he could no longer ignore his feelings or pretend that she was just a friend. "Amara," he began, his voice steady but hesitant. "There's something I need to tell you. Something important." She turned to him, sensing the gravity of his tone. Her heart began to race, a mixture of hope and fear swirling inside her. "I've been thinking about this for a long time," he continued. "You've become such an important part of our lives. The children love you. I trust you. And I think I've fallen in love with you." The words hung in the air, heavy and vulnerable, yet filled with sincerity. Amara felt a rush of emotions. Joy, relief, fear, and disbelief collided inside her. For so long, she had believed she was unworthy of love, that her past rejection by her husband had defined her life. And now, here was Ethan, a man of integrity, warmth, and patience, telling her that he valued her, trusted her, and loved her. Tears welled up in her eyes as she struggled to find the right words. "Ethan, I don't know what to say," she whispered, her voice trembling. I never thought anyone could see me like this, after everything I've been through." Ethan reached out, taking her hand gently in his. "You are more than enough, Amara. You've shown strength, kindness, and love in ways I never thought possible. I want you to be part of our family, not because you can fulfill some expectation, but because you are you. The children and we need you in our lives." His words were simple, yet they carried a weight of truth that Amara had longed to hear. She felt a warmth spread through her chest, a sense of belonging she had never felt before. The next few days were filled with careful consideration and quiet reflection. Amara spent time with each of the children individually, gauging their feelings, listening to their thoughts, and noticing the bond they shared with her. Each child expressed excitement and joy at the idea of her becoming a permanent part of their lives. Even the eldest, who had often been the most reserved and skeptical, admitted that he felt safe and happy when she was around. This affirmation gave Amara the courage she needed. She realized that her place in their lives was not just desired, it was needed, valued, and cherished. Ethan, too, faced his own challenges. He had to reconcile the societal expectations of a man in his position with his heart's desire. Friends, colleagues, and even extended family might question his choice to bring a woman who was once rejected for being barren into his life. But he realized that their opinions were irrelevant compared to the happiness and stability he saw in his children and the connection he felt with Amara. He wanted a life built on love, trust, and emotional connection, not empty appearances or societal approval. The decision was solidified one evening during a family dinner. Ethan had invited Amara to join them, and as the children laughed and shared stories, he observed the joy she brought to the table. He realized in that moment that this was the life he wanted, a life where love, laughter, and genuine care were central. Turning to Amara, he spoke with quiet confidence. "Amara, I want you to be with us. Not as a visitor, not as a helper, but as part of our family. Will you stay? With me and with the children?" Amara's heart swelled with emotion. She had imagined this moment countless times in her dreams. But now that it was real, she felt a mix of disbelief and overwhelming joy. Tears streamed down her face as she nodded, her voice catching in her throat. Yes, Ethan, I will stay. I want to be with you. And with them." The children erupted with cheers and laughter, running to hug her and expressing their excitement with unrestrained joy. It was a scene of pure happiness, a moment where the past hurt and pain seemed to vanish, replaced by hope, love, and belonging. From that day forward, Amara's role in their lives became official. She helped Ethan with the children's routines, school activities, and emotional needs. But more importantly, she became a source of stability, love, and warmth. Ethan, in turn, made conscious efforts to include her in every aspect of their lives. Recognizing her importance not just to the children, but to him personally, their relationship grew naturally, built on trust, respect, and shared experiences. Rather than pressure or expectation, yet the journey was not without challenges. Amara had to navigate her own insecurities and fears, remnants of past rejection, while Ethan had to manage the complexities of blending a new partner into a family already shaped by past loss and change. But together, they faced each obstacle with honesty, communication, and a shared commitment to the children's happiness. The bond they built was resilient, not because it was easy, but because it was rooted in love, its understanding, and mutual respect. As weeks turned into months, Amara fully integrated into their lives. The children began to see her not just as a caretaker, but as a mother figure, someone they could trust, love, and confide in. Ethan found companionship, emotional support, and love that transcended his previous notions of what family should be. Together, they created a home filled with laughter, care, and genuine connection. Amara had finally found a place where she was valued, needed, and loved for who she truly was. It's not defined by what she could or could not give. In quiet moments, Amara reflected on her journey. She remembered the heartbreak of being rejected by her husband, the loneliness she had felt, and the pain of losing her dreams. But now, she realized that rejection had led her to a life far richer and more fulfilling than she could have imagined. She had found love, family, and a home where she belonged, not because she fulfilled someone else's expectations, but because she was herself. And in that realization, she discovered that true happiness often comes from unexpected places, from courage, and from the willingness to open one's heart again. Life slowly settled into a comforting rhythm for Amara, Ethan, and his 4 children. After the heartfelt decision that brought her into their family, days were filled with laughter, little challenges, and moments of quiet joy. Amara had grown from being a visitor in their lives to becoming a central figure, the heart of the home in ways she never imagined. Every morning, she woke up with purpose, greeting the children as they scrambled to get ready for school, helping the youngest tie his shoelaces, guiding the eldest with his homework, and making sure the middle 2 had a healthy breakfast and the encouragement they. Ethan watched her quietly on those mornings, a soft smile playing on his lips. He had lived in a world dominated by schedules, meetings, and responsibilities, but Amara had brought life into his home. The house that once felt empty and cold now buzzed with warmth, laughter, and energy. The children no longer felt the absence of a mother as a gaping hole, but rather experienced the presence of someone who cared deeply and unconditionally for them. Ethan realized that Amara had given them stability, love, and trust, things that were far more valuable than material comfort or perfection. Amara, too, discovered a happiness she had never thought possible. In the past, she had defined her worth by her ability to bear children, believing that failure to do so made her incomplete. But in this new life, she realized that her value was not measured by biology, but by her ability to nurture, love, and bring joy to those around her. Every smile she received from the children, every hug she shared, and every word of gratitude from Ethan reminded her that she was cherished. She began to see herself through their eyes as someone capable, loving, and important. The bond between Amara and the children strengthened each day. They shared small routines, such as bedtime stories, baking treats in the kitchen, or working on school projects together. They confided in her, sharing secrets, fears, and dreams. The eldest, who had once been distant and skeptical of adults' intentions, now sought her advice on matters big and small. The middle two children felt safe enough to show their emotions openly, even when upset or frustrated, knowing that Amara would listen without judgment. The youngest, who had once clung nervously to Ethan, now turned to Amara for comfort, snuggling into her arms when scared or unwell. Amara became their anchor, someone they could rely on through all the highs and lows of childhood. Ethan's relationship with Amara grew deeper as well. He no longer saw her simply as someone who cared for his children. She had become his partner, his confidant, and his source of emotional support. They shared quiet evenings after the children had gone to bed, talking about their dreams, their fears, and their plans for the future. Ethan found himself opening up in ways he hadn't since his previous heartbreak, sharing memories of his late partner and even discussing his own insecurities. Amara listened patiently, offering empathy and understanding without judgment. And in turn, she shared her own experiences and fears. Together, they built a connection that was stronger than passion alone. It was rooted in trust, respect, and a shared commitment to family. One particular afternoon, Ethan surprised Amara by taking the children on a small outing, while she had a chance to rest and enjoy some quiet time. He returned later to find the house perfectly arranged, a home-cooked meal waiting on the table, and the children happily recounting their day. Seeing Amara in that moment, so calm, confident, and glowing with love for the children, Ethan realized fully how deeply she had become part of their lives. He felt a surge of gratitude and love, understanding that their lives had been transformed because she had entered them. As the months passed, life continued to bring both ordinary and special moments that strengthened their bond. Birthday parties were filled with laughter, small victories like good grades and school achievements were celebrated together. And even the little setbacks or arguments between the children were handled with patience and care. Amara taught them the importance of empathy, kindness, and resilience, while Ethan showed them responsibility, courage, and the value of family. The children grew happier, more confident, and more secure. Feeling the love and stability they had long missed, Amara's presence also helped heal old wounds within the family. The children had long carried the emotional scars of their mother's departure, feeling abandoned and insecure. Amara, with her gentle patience and consistent support, helped them process those feelings. She didn't try to replace their mother. Instead, she offered them a safe space to express their emotions. Through this process, the children learned that love could be constant, reliable, and nurturing, even in the face of past pain. Ethan and Amara also found joy in simple family traditions. They created routines together. Saturday mornings were for baking, afternoons for park visits or games, and evenings for storytelling and movie nights. Holidays became celebrations filled with creativity, laughter, and togetherness. Each day, the family built memories that strengthened their connection. And Amara realized that love and family were not just about biology, they were about care, presence, and commitment. Amara herself experienced personal growth during this time. She had once been defined by rejection, feeling incomplete because of her inability to have children. Now she found confidence in her abilities, her strength, and the love she was capable of giving. She learned to embrace herself fully, understanding that her past did not define her future. Each smile from a child, each word of encouragement from Ethan, and each small success in their daily life reinforced her self-worth. She had found happiness not in what she lacked, but in what she could give: the gift of love, patience, and presence. Ethan and Amara's partnership also served as a model for the children. They saw how two people could care deeply for each other, support one another, and work together to create a loving environment. The children learned important lessons about trust, communication, and emotional openness. Seeing these values demonstrated every day in the lives of the adults they trusted most. Amara and Ethan's relationship became the foundation of a strong, happy family, teaching lessons the children would carry throughout their lives. The family also faced challenges, as all families do, but together they navigated them with resilience. School pressures, childhood quarrels, and the occasional misunderstandings between adults were handled with honesty and care. Amara and Ethan's consistent support and presence created a safe environment for the children, where they could face difficulties knowing they were loved unconditionally. This security allowed the children to grow into confident, happy individuals, and Amara felt a deep sense of fulfillment in seeing their transformation. In quiet moments, Amara reflected on her journey. She remembered the heartbreak of her past, the loneliness, and the rejection she had endured. But she also recognized that those painful experiences had led her to this life, a life filled with love, laughter, and family. She had discovered that true happiness came not from societal approval or expectations, but from genuine connection, trust, and care. Her past sorrow had made her stronger, more empathetic, capable of giving love freely and fully. Ethan often joined her in these quiet reflections. They would sit together after the children were asleep, talking softly about how far they had come and how grateful they were for one another. He would hold her hand, look into her eyes, and remind her of the profound impact she had on their lives. Amara would smile, feeling a sense of peace she had never known before, knowing that she was finally home, not just in a physical sense, but in the hearts of the people she loved and who loved her in return. The home they had built together became a sanctuary of warmth and happiness. Laughter echoed through the rooms. Children's footsteps pattered joyfully across the floors, and moments of tenderness and love were shared daily. Amara, once rejected and heartbroken, had found a family that valued her, children who trusted and adored her, and a partner who loved her unconditionally. She had discovered that life could offer unexpected joy, that love could arrive in forms she had never imagined, and that sometimes the family we were meant to have was not defined by tradition, but by the hearts that welcomed us fully in the end. Amara knew that she had finally found what she had always longed for, a place where she belonged, where she was loved and needed, and where every day brought the promise of joy and togetherness. Her past heartbreak was no longer a burden, but a path that had led her to happiness, proving that life, with all its twists and turns, could bring a love deeper and truer than she had ever dreamed.